Xbox On. Welcome to Xbox On, a podcast with one host about one console, Xbox. I am said host, Jesse DeRosa, and on today's episode, we'll be talking about the latest Xbox news for the week of July 1st, 2021, including Casey Hudson has a brand new studio, Remedy is working on a new game set in the Control universe, could Bloober Team be working on a Silent Hill revival, and more. It's raining over here. Is it raining over there? It's raining here. Welcome to Xbox On, guys. Episode 108 for the week of July 1st. We're more than halfway through the year now, so probably time to start thinking about that Game of the Year watch. Just kidding. I don't know. I've already seen some people talking about their Game of the Year pick so far. Crazy to think that 2021 is already half over, but you know what? I'm not gonna be a hater and pick on the people doing that, because you know what? I think this past week I may have discovered my Game of the Year, or at least Game of the Year so far. Let's be honest. There's about a 99% chance Halo Infinite is going to be my Game of the Year. Pretty much the only way Halo Infinite won't be my Game of the Year is if it gets delayed into 2022. And even then, it still might be my Game of the Year for 2021. But until Halo Infinite actually launches, I think I may have found my 2021 Game of the Year so far. So far, keyword. But yeah, welcome to another week, guys. Let's start out with our corrections, comments, whatnot. Now, this week I don't have any really corrections, but there is something I do want to address. On Wednesday, as the day I'm recording this podcast, IGN has uploaded episode 500 of their Xbox Podcast Unlocked, and the only reason why I'm pimping and plugging that show is because they had Phil Spencer on the show this week, and he talked about a whole bunch of news. Not too surprising, because Phil Spencer's actually, for a man so busy with such a big position, he sure does find the time for us little guys as podcasters and stuff, and appears on fan podcasts quite a bit, which is really awesome. But anyway, this week he was on IGN's Xbox podcast for what feels like the 20th or billionth time. Yeah, it was I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. I just want to make you guys aware that it is out there, so you can go and check that out. Probably an interesting listen. There's a story kind of floating around from some sound bites from that interview, or from that episode, where Phil Spencer basically talks about how, I assume they get in the conversation of like the kind of pressure on 343 to deliver with Halo Infinite, and the kind of pressure riding on this game to bring Halo back to its former glory and its former form of respect among both the Halo community and the gaming community at large. And so I assume that's kind of the context in which they were talking about this, but a lot of quotes and sound bites coming out from this podcast episode where Phil Spencer basically just says, you know, Halo is going to be around for the next 10 plus years. Like we talked about Halo Infinite being a platform. Xbox has mentioned that Halo Infinite is a platform. It's not a game that's one and done release and you move on. It's going to be kind of like a game that continues to get new story content, new multiplayer content, so it will live and breathe in that way. And basically what Phil Spencer says is, yeah, Halo Infinite is going to be what we want it to be, regardless of whether or not it is, you know, the game that lights the world on fire or just another Halo. It seems like is really what he's saying, basically saying that 343 is here to make Halo, and Halo is here to stay. Don't worry too much about whether it's a 85 on Metacritic or a 95, or if it's received as like a good Halo game or a great Halo game or a middle of the road Halo game, you know. So don't worry too much about that. It's kind of his response, and to which I think I kind of appreciate that level of candor, because it is like saying, hey, listen, remember, at the end of the day, it's less so about what like IGN and Kotaku and a couple YouTubers with large audiences have to say about the quality of the game. What really matters is, are people buying the game? Are people playing the game? Remember, the multiplayer is free to play. Are a bunch of people jumping on board? Are they having fun? Are they sticking around? Are they buying battle passes? Are they in it? Are they getting engaged with the content? And that's really what it's about. So I do appreciate that level of candor, but I just want to put that out there. Interesting story. Obviously, a podcast probably worth checking out, so want to put that out there. I plan on listening to it sometime this weekend, but that's the first thing I wanted to address. Now, guys, without any more pimping of other podcasts, of which I am not a part of, let's actually jump into my podcast, where we talk about Xbox, but let's be honest, We talk about a whole lot of other stuff. Speaking of other stuff, let's get into your comments, shout-outs, and whatnot from YouTube. Remember, if you ever want to comment on the show, you head on over to youtube.com. You look up Second Best Gaming, and there you'll find the Xbox On playlist. Click on that. You'll see the latest episode. Always leave a comment on the latest episode. Don't be doing some cute shit. Don't be going like, oh, episode 38. I'm going to leave it. I have a comment for Jesse. I want to know where babies come from. But I don't want to leave that comment on episode 108, the latest episode of Xbox On Podcast. I'm feeling cute today, so I'm going to leave that comment on episode 38. And I'm going to go, hey, dumbass. No one thinks you're cute. No one's entertaining this stupidity. And I'm going to ignore your comment. I'm going to move on. I'm going to pull comments from episode 108 because I live in the here and now, not in the past, okay? I'm not like that no more, okay? I'm not that emo. I don't look back. I look forward, you bitch. So, remember that. You can say anything you want. You'll get read on the air. I don't care. As long as it's kind of respectful to one another, that's good. You can say anything you want. Ask any question. Don't be afraid to voice your opinion, your questions, your concerns, your thoughts, your oppositions to things I say on the show. Remember, you can say nice things like, Jesse, thank you so much for caring about the audio fidelity and the quality of this podcast, so much so that you're willing to podcast without a ceiling fan on. You're willing to sweat your ass off just to make sure this podcast sounds as good as it can possibly sound. I appreciate that. Thank you, Jesse. That's a nice comment to leave. Or you can leave a mean comment like, Jesse, I don't give a shit if the ceiling fan is off, and if you got to keep it all nice and quiet in your room and you're hot and sweaty while you podcast, you don't have a reason to take your shirt off. You podcast with a shirt on so that all of us can sleep nice and sound at night, knowing that creepy guys like you aren't running around half naked. Okay, fair enough. Okay? But go ahead, leave those comments, you guys. Our first one this week comes from my brother, Josiah. I try not to ever read him first because I don't want you guys to ever feel like I'm giving favoritism to family. But I really did feel like this was the comment to kick off this week's episode with, so suck it. Josiah says, hey, X-Boners, I found out how we could win the console war. We need to do what Google and Coke did. Soda is just called Coke. Web searches are just called Googling. If we just call gaming Xbox, we win. So I like that line of thinking. I especially the example of search engines. You know, I'm a big Bing user. You guys know that. I often promote my usage of Bing because, let's just be honest, if you've ever actually used Bing instead of just memeing it because I know it's funny to hate on, you would know that Bing is actually a superior search engine to Google. It's just that one is so incredibly ubiquitous that there's no chance anything else could ever really rival it. But yeah, there we go. When people want to look something up, they don't say search an internet inquiry or a web an aggregate site or a web browser a searching database website, client or something. Everyone just says yeah, Google it, right? And I agree that we should do that with gaming. That's a good way to get Xbox at the forefront of gamers' minds, is to stop referring to it as console gaming or video games or whatever, this versus that. Let's just call it all Xbox. So it's like, what are you going to do this week? Don't say, oh, I'm going to chill at home and play some games. No, say, I'm going to go home and play Xbox. It's like, oh, what did you do when your family came over? Oh, we played Mario Kart. We sat around the couch, played some Xbox, Mario Kart, Super Smash Bros., some nice couch co-op games, and just, who cares if it's correct? Just call it all Xbox. But the problem with that is, and I'll poke some logic in your hole, or poke a hole in your logic, is that Nintendo kind of already claimed that ubiquity, I'd argue, back in the 90s, because, I mean, Josiah, we have the same mother. I'd argue that you experienced this alongside myself, that whenever an out of touch, a non-gaming parent, one of those parents that just aren't cool enough to understand gaming, they just don't have what it takes to be hip and hang out with the likes of Solid Snake. So those parents would say things like, "Oh, you darn kids, shut up and go play your Game Boy. Go play your Nintendo. Oh, kids, they never get outside these days. They just want to sit around the TV and play their Nintendo. Oh, kids these days, they never want to go sneak alcohol from their dad's man den and go play with the boys down the road, throwing rocks at the train cars and drinking on beer. Then nope, they'd rather just play their Nintendo. They'd play their Game Boy." And so I'd argue Nintendo kind of already did that back in the day. Now, I think, especially with the diversification of how we play games through, PlayStation being a really, really big and powerful brand, Xbox existing as well as a strong contender, PC just being a big space for gaming, and of course mobile, I would say that we've gotten to a point where Nintendo is less ubiquitous. I think a lot of general people are more familiar with brands like Xbox or PlayStation, but still, Nintendo did have that for a long time, where it was like, oh, there's a Nintendo. So to not only try and get gamers to start referring to everything as Xbox instead of gaming or PlayStation or Nintendo, but to also get the general public, that's a big hurdle to overcome, especially when Xbox still is in a solid third place compared to the other two in terms of brand value and awareness. So I do want to mention that, but Dead Captain James does want to say he wants to add into what you're saying. He says, cool, I'm going to be Xboxing today. Happy B-Day. Oh, thank you, Dead Captain James. It's, of course, my brother, not me. I don't have a birthday. I was born in a test tube. Eric Masson says, Nintendo Switch is my favorite Xbox console. So here's a couple applications of how this could be used. I hope you guys do understand what Josiah was going for. But yeah, I'm all for it. We just call it all Xbox now. Although I will say, just as a side note, in reference to parents, just frustratingly yelling at their kids and being like, get off your Game Boy and go do your homework or whatever. Our mom used to, growing up, confuse Game Boy with Playboy. And she used to always tell us, like, get off that Playboy or get out of my face, go play your Playboy or something. And so I want to put that out there. If you ever listen to this show and you go, Jesse, this is a nice podcast, but you're kind of a weird fucking guy. You're kind of a weird dude. Who raised you? What made you this way? I don't want to blame anyone. I don't want to put the blame on anyone. I just want to put out the facts and let you kind of take that information in and do with it what you will. But I do want to just let you know, my mother used to tell me when I was 5 years old, you play on your Playboy too much, or get out of my face. You guys are making too much noise. Go to your rooms. Play your Playboys. So could explain a lot. Now our next comment here comes from Mr. Miggy. The one and only Mr. Miggy, who says, how do I go about sliding into your DMs? Slanty, smiley, weird little emoji face. I just recently uninstalled Sea of Thieves, not realizing that they do have a hidden single-player mode, and now the new Pirates Life update. Maybe next year I'll give it a third try. Also, I recently just played a bunch of Halo multiplayer. I think my favorite is Halo 4, especially at 120 FPS. With 5, though, I just wish I could use the same button layout as the Master Chief Collection. The closest I got was using Recon. Well, Mr. Miggy, as far as sliding into my DMs, I don't know if that was like some facetious comment there or what, but if you really want to reach out to me directly, you can always hit me up on twitter.com, at Jesse DeRosa. That's right, I recently changed from the second best branding because you guys forced me to finally take the 2 seconds to figure out how to do that. So Twitter at Jesse DeRosa, you could always message me there. You can email the show, I guess, if you wanted. The email for this podcast is at secondbestrock@gmail.com. That's just my YouTube Google account that I use to make my YouTube, whatever. So, any of those ways you could reach out to me. But Mr. Miggy, more importantly, I first of all, I get what you're saying with Sea of Thieves. It's kind of annoying. It is kind of this thing of like, oops, I missed all the cool stuff. I guess I'll just get around to it next time I get around to it. But as for your Halo comment here, I find this a little interesting here because you say, maybe this is a little bit of a controversial comment here, but you say you think your favorite Halo multiplayer is Halo 4. Now, listen, I'm not going to get mad at you. I don't take any issue with that comment saying that your favorite Halo multiplayer is Halo 4, especially because you can play on 120 FPS. And I agree, that makes a huge difference. Halo feels so good at 120 FPS, especially FOV slider pretty high up. Ooh, I love that, dude. I can't go back now. I used to play Halo 5 as my regular Halo multiplayer game, but ever since the Series X came out, I'll be honest, I mostly play Halos 2, 3, and 4 on Master Chief Collection. Highest frame rate and pretty much almost all the way up on that FOV slider. I love it. It's beautiful. It's really, really fun. So I get what you're saying there. But Halo 4 is your favorite Halo multiplayer game. That is a controversial take to a lot of Halo fans. They would argue that Halo 4 is probably objectively the worst Halo multiplayer, just because, not campaign, but multiplayer specifically, because that was the Halo that had loadouts and Spartan abilities that carried over from Reach and things like that. People were really not too happy with Halo 4's multiplayer. Now, I personally think Halo 4 multiplayer is very good, very underappreciated, some of the best multiplayer in the franchise, so I think that's a solid choice if you ask me. But you might want to watch who you say that kind of thing around, because you might get your lights punched out. That's all I'm saying there, guy. Also, it's funny you mentioned the thing about Halo 5 being hard to play because you can't adjust the controls. I run into that issue now too because Halo 5 in my opinion has the best control setup of any Halo game. But the problem is it's so unconventional for a Halo game that even though it's, I think, an improvement over previous Halo games, because we live in a world where Halo is this franchise where you don't forget the old one and you only play the new one, you constantly play all of them, it makes Halo 5 difficult to play because I still play Halo 2, I still play Halo 3, I still play Halo Reach, so it's hard for me to constantly jump from Halo 2's control scheme to Halo 5's control scheme to Halo 4's control scheme. Most of the other ones, the differences are minor. It's like a different button here or there. But Halo 5 is a very conventional modern FPS shooter kind of setup where you scope in with the left trigger instead of the right stick, and like you got your thruster on the B button, and you got reload with X instead of right bumper. So it is a little unconventional, and you can fuck around with the controls a bit there, Mr. Mickey. But again, the game's mechanics and things are so different that even if you did, it is kind of a tough one to deal with. So I relate to what you're saying there. But yeah, Mr. Mickey, thank you for writing in. One last thing that this I do want to mention, because my brother actually sent me this a few weeks ago. I didn't want to bring it up on the show because E3 and all the big news happening, there wasn't really time for it. I really wish I had the article handy, but he sent me this article. I forget what fucking outlet did this, but they ran a bunch of surveys to random gamers, an assortment. It was like over 1,000 gamers, so it was a good sample size, and it was a percentage of people who play Halo casually and people who consider themselves diehard Halo fans, as well as the staff of that game news outlet. And God, I really wish I could remember. I don't remember which outlet it was, but basically what they were saying, the point of the article was to say, obviously Halo is pretty divisive among fans. People think the general consensus is Halo 2 and 3, yay. Halo 4 and 5, go fuck yourself. But, when you really do the statistics and see the kind of who's playing what and how people felt about each Halo game on a more of a survey one-on-one basis, the kind of data they came back with basically suggested that, as you would usually suggest with games, with each release, people just tend to like the newest one the best. And so a lot of their survey data came back, and again, surveying a lot of people who are gamers, Halo gamers, and then just more casual people, as well as staff at this website. What they got a lot of data suggesting was that even though the conversation in the little inner circle, in the little bubble on Twitter and on the internet is always saying Halo 3 was the best, Bungie was the best, fuck 343, they screwed everything up, Halo 5 was a complete failure. Despite that being the conversation, when you just kind of survey general people who just played the game and enjoyed it and moved on with their lives because they're grown-ass adults, the general consensus was yeah, Halo 5 is the best because it's the newest, and Halo 4 was pretty good, and Halo 3 was pretty good, but Halo 2, despite being great for the time, is a little antiquated, so I don't think it's as good as 4 and 5, and I don't think 1's as good as 3 and 4 and 5, and that was kind of the general consensus. It was people really liked Reach and 4 and 5 and 3 a lot, and I think the ranking, I can't remember what the ranking was. I think it was something the ranking was something 4, Reach, 5, 3, or 2, 3, 1, or something like that was how the poll data came out. It was something kind of along those lines. But I remember, my brother sent it over to me saying, this is really interesting, you should bring it up on the podcast. And I thought, I definitely want to bring this up because it's just such a perfect example of how, because I always complain about how, the big issue with Halo Infinite is that 343 and Microsoft felt the need to bend the knee and try to appease those fanboys by backing off the story of Halo 5, backing off the art direction of 343's Halo, and kind of trying to go back to what Halo fans have been asking for. Let's get rid of this feature. Let's get rid of that. Let's go back to this art style. Let's go back to this kind of story. Let's stop taking so many liberties with the franchise. Let's stop re-envisioning it based on what we believe Halo to be, and let's start trying to recreate what they believe Halo is. And that's kind of that's pretty much been my only criticism of Halo Infinite thus far, is that it seems like so much of what they're doing is trying to backpedal to appease these fanboys when, articles like this show that most people actually don't give a shit. Most people in 2015 got Halo 5 and played it, and, again, these are working grown-ass adults who have real lives, Joe Schmo, let's say John Doe, in 2015 got Halo 5 when it came out, and he goes, oh, I love Halo. I played the second one when it came out. I played the third one a lot in high school, played the multiplayer all the time. I played 4 when it came out. It was pretty great. I'm excited for the next Halo. And then Halo 5 came out, and one day he got off his day job and went home to his apartment or his house where he pays rent or a mortgage because he is a functioning human who contributes to society, and he went home and he played Halo 5 and he said, wow, this is a really good game. You can tell it's really well polished, really well put together. It feels good to play. The game's fun, engaging. The art is really good. The graphics are good. What a nice game. And he enjoyed it. And then he went back to work and he went back to his wife and his kids and his actual life, his friends, his family, and going about living a normal adult, healthy life and contributing to society. And that's indicative of the silent majority, which is the people who play the game were like, what a cool game. Move on with my life. And of course, what we actually see, in the Reddit forums and whatnot is just the people who are like, listen, man, I've never done anything in my life other than just glue my fucking eyeballs to my phone screen to make it my personal responsibility to tell each and every human being I've ever come across. Halo 5 sucks dick, and Halo 3 was also shitty, but kind of good. But Halo 2 was a masterpiece because when Halo 2 came out, I had a goatee, and I wore baggy blue pants, and I listened to Disturbed all the fucking time, and I wore sweatbands on my wrists, and I used to do the metal symbol with my fingers, where I put my pinky and my index and my thumb up and showed everyone like the rock symbol. And I used to drive a 2001 Dodge Charger, and everyone thought I was cool. And I also had sex with a girl one time, and that's that's the picture we see. But the reality of the situation is most people are just like, yeah, Halo 5 was a good game. And so I just want to put that out there. I think that's really interesting. Obviously, we always talk about, I feel like in general discourse, the conversation has evolved when we talk about the internet to this point, right? In all the political YouTube and news organization and things, political people I follow, that's also the conversation. In all the game sphere that I follow, that's the conversation. In all the theme park, nerdy, Disney bullshit I follow, that's the conversation. I feel like discourse has generally matured to a point where most people recognize that it's like, we're in these circles having these conversations, yelling, screaming, shaking our fists at the sky, hating on one another about these things we're so passionate about, but we represent the smallest sliver of what's actually going on. And that's how you know you're stuck in a little echo chamber of like hardcore fanboys. I mean, I'm not trying to rip on anyone except those Halo haters because goddamn, are you guys just no fun? But I just want to bring this up to say, again, here we are. It's like Halo games are fun. Like you don't have to look at Halo 4 and 5 and say, I love what they did with the art style. That's a subjective thing. You're not required to like it. You're entitled to think you're entitled to your opinion of Bungie's art style was better. Bungie's gameplay was better, whatever. All those things can be true for you. But it just blows my mind that it's like 343 seemingly objectively made games that were pretty damn good, that people really, really enjoyed. And we've been having this conversation for the past 6 years now that it's been since Halo 5 came out, where it's just like, is Halo in trouble? Halo's just not what it used to be. Man, 343 really dropped the ball with Halo. What can we do to get Halo back? It's like, well, it seems like the problem was always the inner circle and not the actual games themselves. But nonetheless, just thought that was an interesting article. But moving on, Corey Long says, this is for anyone to answer. What game would you want to see get a sequel or a modern remake? Maybe even both. I would have to say Vagrant Story. Remake it. It's been a decade. Vagrant Story, that's a game I've heard the name of a million times, but I'll be honest with you, Corey, I have literally no idea what Vagrant Story is. I don't even know. Let me see if I recognize the box art if I see it. No, actually I do recognize this. The Squaresoft, or Square Enix, of course, RPG for PlayStation. Okay. No, I recognize this box art. I don't recognize the game, of course, but action role-playing game. Look at that. Oh, yeah. So, Corey, that's a good response. Even though I'm not really familiar with Vagrant Story, I got it right off the bat, give you credit and say that's a good choice because, and this isn't to hate on PlayStation, but anything that's from the PlayStation 1 era is a great candidate for a remake because, goddamn, the PlayStation 1 is the ugliest fucking looking, like the games from the PlayStation 1 era are the ugliest looking games. And I mean, that's just, victim of that transition to 3D era. Nothing more really, but god damn, do PS1 games just look ugly as shit. You can go back and play a Super Nintendo game, still looks good. You can go back and play an Xbox 360 game, might not look great, but it's serviceable. You can go back and play a PS2 or an Xbox game, you'd be like, oh, this would be better if we put it in HD, but I can deal with it, You go back and you play like an N64 or especially a PlayStation 1 game, God, let me know in advance so I can pray for you before you boot up that thing, because PlayStation 1 games look and run like shit. So that's actually a really good point, a really good choice. Yeah, that's a great question. I love that. I would love for you guys, if you want to write in. That's a fun topic to discuss. I would like to hear some of your guys' responses. I'm sure you have some really good ones. I personally don't really have a good one. I thought for a couple minutes about this. You guys know how fucking lame I am. I feel like I'm so predictable at this point. I'm just like, you're like, oh, what's a game you like? I'm like, Sonic. You're like, what's a place you like? I'm like, Epcot. What's a thing you put in your mouth? Taco Bell. And you're like, okay, I got it. I feel like if you missed a week or two of Xbox on, you could basically be like, oh, man, I want to catch up. I'm a few weeks behind. Let's see. I missed last week's episode. I probably just talked about Taco Bell and Epcot. Okay, next. Oh, I missed the one from 2 weeks ago? God, what did he I probably just talked about Sonic the Hedgehog and Lightning McQueen. Yeah, you're probably right. You probably skip this episode right now, and you probably already know what I'm going to say. Anyway, Epcot, Xbox, Nintendo, pizza. No. But, Corey, my personal response, if I may, I have a couple of them. Just to get my Weeby ones out of the way that you guys don't care about. The Nintendo Wii has a handful of good Sonic games. I say good with quotes. Good Sonic games that I would really love to play that are just stranded on the Nintendo Wii, as most things from the Nintendo Wii era are. And I would really love to see these games come to modern consoles, get proper controller support, HD versions. Like Sonic Colors was the big one, and thank God we're finally getting that. So soon you'll be able to finally play Sonic Colors on an Xbox in HD with a regular gamepad, no motion controls or any of that kind of stuff. Perfect. But Sonic and the Black Knight is a Sonic spin-off game that a lot of Sonic fans, myself included, have a similar consensus on, which is this would be a very, very fun on-rails, arcadey Sonic game if it weren't for the fact that you were required to use motion controls, because the motion controls in this game were unresponsive and shitty and tiring. And if you could just move forward with an analog stick and attack with face buttons, the game would be infinitely better. And Sonic and the Black Knight was a game that, a spin-off game unrelated to the main storyline, just a stupid, goofy, fun little spin-off game. But it had a really cool setting where it transported Sonic and his friends to the Arthur and the Black Knight kind of medieval story setting. And it was just kind of cool being Sonic the Hedgehog running around with a sword and slashing the fuck out of knights and stuff. It was fun. And it would be very fun if you could just play it with modern, regular controls that are responsive and usable. And then, of course, maybe, put it in HD, give it a nice frame rate boost. But yeah, that's a game that is a 4 out of 10 that could easily be a 6 or 6.5 out of 10 if you just gave it a regular control scheme and ported it to modern consoles. So easy. I don't think we'll ever see that happen, but that would be my first choice. My second choice would have to be Mercenaries 1 and 2. Speaking of Pandemic, the guys that used to make the Star Wars Battlefront games that also made Destroy All Humans. I think Mercenaries 1 and 2, World Playground of Destruction and World in Flames. Those games were so fucking good. They're just massive sandboxes where you run around, blow shit up. The objectives are fun. The missions are fun. The story is fun. The characters are goofy and fun. I really, really, really loved the Mercenaries games. And, rest in peace, Pandemic. A lot of those guys actually work at 343 now, working on Halo. But, rest in peace, Pandemic. They were one of my favorite AA goofy developers from back in the day. And they put out some really, really good stuff. And Mercenaries, the two Mercenary games are among my favorite games that they ever created. And I would really love, in a world where we have the Koch Medias with all the various smaller teams and publishers and the THQ Nordics and whatnot, I would love to see them take the Mercenaries license and re-release them. I mean, they literally did that with Destroy All Humans, so why not do Mercenaries 1 and 2 bundle or release them each separately for $40 a pop? I would be so into that. I would be so all over that if you just take the first two Mercenaries games, up-res them, touch them up a little bit, make them a little prettier, cleaner, easy to play, a little more accessible for a modern audience. Oh my God, I would go all over that. What great games. But thankfully, I think both of those games are backwards compatible, so it's not totally lost to time, but those are two Xbox-specific games that I would really love to see remakes of. As far as sequels, I don't know, man. Sequels, make a Sonic Unleashed Part 2. Please. Sonic fans will tell you they want Sonic Adventure 3. Fuck them. I want Sonic Unleashed Part 2. Oh, also make a Disney Infinity 4.0 And no ketchup, no mustard. Thank you, Corey. Wes H writes in and says, now, Jesse, I understand you're taking some heat because of your E3 comments, but personally, I could not agree more with what you were saying. Halo looked better than I was expecting. I'm super pumped for Redfall, although I know you feel less optimistic about it. And I'm thankful to have Game Pass because a lot of really great titles will be on there this year alone. But where the hell's Fable, State of Decay, Hellblade, Avowed? I would have rather seen what progress they've made with those titles than 30-second clips of random games that won't come out for another 4 years. I feel like it's Xbox worrying about their own ego rather than their fans and what they actually want. All in all, I gave the showcase a 7 out of 10 because I'm really excited about the 2021 lineup, but was just left with a lot of questions. And Wes, I think that's kind of my thing too, is I was just left with a lot of questions. It's like, it's not that I wasn't excited about what we saw, it's that I couldn't just see what we saw and then not be left with a bunch of questions in addition to that. And that's kind of my main takeaway from it as well, right? I do disagree with you a little bit here where you say like the games that they showed that won't be coming out for another 4 years. The games they showed this year are games that are coming out, in all fairness, within the next like 6 to 18 months. So they did show us some stuff that's rather, relatively releasing soon. But my bigger gripe was like, why did you announce the other stuff in the first place if you had no intention of talking about it the next year or the next year or the next event or whatever? Because it's just a bunch of blue balling. And yeah, I think you get down to the crux of it with that one statement. You said it's Xbox worrying about their own ego rather than what the fans actually want. And that's right and wrong. I think it's Xbox worrying about their own image and their ego and their whole their fragile attitude about the whole Xbox doesn't have any games thing. It's them beating the hell out of that argument to the point where there's no logical way you could ever make that point. That was the point of it. But as far as rather than what the fans actually want, I guess we stand corrected, both of us, because it seems like the fans did want this. Overwhelmingly, people were really pleased with this. So hey, if the fans are happy, what else matters, I guess. So. But anyway, I thank you for writing in, Wes. Thanks for having my back. You're a good guy. Although you still gotta apologize to Mojo. Count Skyla writes in and says, there's an interview circulating with Phil Spencer about Halo Infinite's release. Paraphrasing, here's what he says, something like, quote, there's a lot of big games out this year and we're trying to pick the best spot, so we have narrowed down to weeks, not months, and everyone is very confident in the holiday release window. Jez Corden from Windows Central also said the lack of release date was related to making sure that it's slotted correctly around Battlefield and Call of Duty. Also, can't wait to jump back into Sea of Thieves again to play the new content. I enjoyed Sea of Thieves, but I also thought it was just a smidge too open-ended for me. Looking forward to playing an actual story. We'll count Skyla to take out the easy part. Yeah, that's everyone's. That is the perpetual issue with Sea of Thieves, right? It's just how it's too open-ended. But yeah, if you, like I said last week, look up a guide or two to just kind of get an idea of where to find the story missions, how to approach them, how they kind of operate. And once you get a feel for that, I think you'll be pretty set in terms of like wrapping your brain around, how am I supposed to approach this? How do I play this? How can I enjoy this? And you'll find yourself having a good time, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, as for the rest of your comment, now I saw this going around as well. And that's why I didn't put it in the corrections in the comments or the corrections section up top, is because I know you commented about it, so I wanted to get to it here. But yes, now I want to believe this, and Jez has a great track record. We cite Windows Central all the fucking time. We're about to do it this week. But again, at the same time, I'm like, well, why would you be worried about slotting Halo around Call of Duty and Battlefield when Call of Duty, is going to be Call of Duty no matter what? Whether Halo comes out right before, right after Call of Duty is a monster all unto itself, and what can you fucking do? And with Battlefield, the problem is that's a $70 multiplayer only game. That's slightly more niche than like Halo and Call of Duty, because Halo and Call of Duty are a lot more pick up and play and accessible and friendly to all, whereas Battlefield's a little more technical and a little more skill based, a little more involved, than games like Halo and Call of Duty. So between it being a little more hardcore, us knowing it comes out in October and knowing that shortly before Halo Infinite was even shown this year. So, and then also the fact that Battlefield is a multiplayer only $70 game. I feel like that's kind of a bum excuse, right? Because at least with the fact with Battlefield, I think there's no reason why they couldn't have picked a date, right? If you really want to argue Call of Duty, that's fine. I get it. Remember when So, I mean, if I can understand Microsoft's apprehension because of Call of Duty, because you can go back to Halo 3's release and see how that kind of plays out. In 2007, Halo 3 comes out in September. It's the biggest fucking game in the world. Everyone's freaking out. It was literally the biggest entertainment launch in history at the time. And it was amazing. Everyone was having a great time. Halo was great shit. And then a month and a half later in November, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare came out. And that's the game that changed the world of gaming forever. And it wasn't like overnight it blew up. It felt like, I guess technically it was, but it felt like with Call of Duty 4 that was like, oh, the reviews are really strong. And a couple people played it and said, oh, you gotta try this game, it's great. And then it felt like this burn of like over the next month or two, Call of Duty just kept growing and growing and growing. People just kept talking and talking and talking. And Halo 3 just kind of like quieted down. And for the first time ever, it was just like, oh, there's this other. And then you go to like 2010 when Halo Reach came out. And it was like, yeah, Halo Reach came out in September. It was a big deal. Everyone was happy. And then a month and a half later, in November, Call of Duty Black Ops came out. And that's still like the best or one of the very best selling Call of Duties of all time. And again, it was just like, even though Halo Reach was all the talk of the town and everyone loved it for a month and a half, the second Call of Duty Black Ops came out, it was just like Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty, and it just stayed that way. So we even saw that. I'll stop after this, but like it's happened many times before. But 2012, Halo 4 came out in November. Everyone's like, "Oh shit, the new Halo's fucking awesome." It was like 2 or 3 days later, Black Ops 2 came out, and it was just like, okay, Black Ops. Although I will say back in 2012, it felt a little more split. It felt like Halo and Call of Duty were sharing a little bit more of the conversation at the same time back then. But this is a reoccurring thing that happens. It's like Halo comes, everyone gets excited, everyone plays it, we're having a good time. Call of Duty comes right after, boom, bye Halo. And I can understand if Microsoft's like, yeah, we want Halo Infinite to feel like it can breathe. Well, if you really want that to happen, if that's really what you're after, Microsoft, I think the answer is to release Halo Infinite in like February. Straight up. I'm not suggesting that they delay it, and I don't hope that they delay it for that reason, but if that is their main concern, is to kind of distance yourself from Call of Duty, get yourself some breathing room, some press time, and some hands-on with the audience before Call of Duty gets there, or wait till after Call of Duty's calmed down, you're not going to get that within a couple of days or weeks in November. It's just not going to happen. Call of Duty will likely come out at the tail end of October, or more likely mid-November. Call of Duty almost always comes out mid-November. So you say holiday 2021, you want to come out, you don't want to get lost in the shuffle. So what does that mean? Does that mean, we know Battlefield is late October. So does that mean you want to go in between Battlefield and Halo, or that's what you want to avoid? You want to go, I guess you said holiday, so you can't go before Battlefield. That would be fall. So what, you're going to launch Halo at like the tail end of November or early December? Again, it's just like, what are you doing here? Remember, Halo Infinite has the advantage of its multiplayer is free to play. And yes, Call of Duty has Warzone, which is of course free to play, but the multiplayer suite in Call of Duty is locked behind a paywall. The multiplayer, like team deathmatch shit. The multiplayer, which is the only experience in Battlefield, is locked behind a $70 paywall. So Halo Infinite says, no, you can go ahead, play the multiplayer, free to download. And then Halo Infinite also says, oh, campaign, $15 a month for Game Pass. You can enjoy it. You don't have to spend $60. Whereas Battlefield says, we don't even have a campaign. And Call of Duty says, $70 you can get our campaign. So Halo Infinite already has a price advantage in so many ways. I don't know that they need to be as concerned about that. But, like I said, Jez Corden's right about a lot of things. I don't want to try to demean him here. I don't know how I feel about that argument, But we'll see. Listen, it's at the time you're listening to this, it's July. We're a few months away from this game coming out. July, we got till August, September, October, November. We've got like 4 months. We'll be playing Halo Infinite in the next 4 or 5 months. So whatever, we'll know very soon. Eric Masson, let's go a little faster. We're going a little slow today. Eric Masson says, I wonder if Stalker 2 is going to have an option for dialogue to be in English. I'm sure it will be, but that's an interesting point. You say, I get that it's set in Chernobyl and that the Russian dialogue therefore makes sense artistically, but I would personally rather not have to rely on subtitles to understand what the hell is going on. Still going to play it regardless. It looks really It looks heckin' deadly, but I hope there's an option for uncultured swine like myself to listen in English and just pretend they're speaking Russian. Eric, I can relate. I know the feeling, but like, I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know if it will have an English option or not, but I don't know. Like, don't let that deter you too much. You know, when I started playing the Yakuza games, I was like, oh, it has to be in Japanese? Fuck. And real quick, you get over that when you play Yakuza. It's really fast. You're just like, fuck it, I'm reading English subtitles. The game's in Japanese, and now I wouldn't have it any other way. Now, if you try to give me a Yakuza game and you're like, yeah, you can do English, I'll be like, no, fucking switch that shit to Japanese. I play Yakuza in Japanese with English subtitles, you know. So give the game a try. You know, it may add to the experience. For me, I find that's the case with especially with Yakuza, but. You know, it's not the end of the world. We got to read a little bit, but I understand. It's nice to have the option. I'm playing Scarlet Nexus right now, and I chose English dialogue instead of Japanese. So a little bit of a hypocrite there in that regard, but I understand where you're coming from, Eric. I'm gonna hope and pray for your sake that you can play that game in English. You also say, by the way, Jesse, you should change the name of your channel and make it Xbox Series Jess. Eric, I both love and hate that name. Love it because it's punny, it works. It's cute. Hate it because I don't go by Jess. I'm not upset that you said that. I get the point you're trying to make, the little joke you're trying to make, and it's a good one. I like it, but I also don't like it. Dead Captain James writes in and says, the tall tales get way better with each one. The story slowly gets fleshed out. It's not mind-blowing or anything, but it's a nice carrot for people like me to chase. I think I'll be done with the game again after I complete all of them, plus the Disney stuff. I'm a bit older than you, so I was a big Goonies kid, and the tall tales scratch that Goonies itch. Dude, I saw Goonies once when I was like 7 years old at a sleepover at my friend's house. It was like a birthday party sleepover. And I just remember my friend and all his friends stayed up and watched Goonies. And I fell asleep like 7 minutes into the fucking movie. And then I woke up at like the last 5 minutes of the movie. That's all I remember at Goonies. I remember the first 5 minutes, the last 5 minutes, and then they watched Gremlins and I fell back asleep. And that's actually the extent of my experience with both Goonies and Gremlins. So, yeah. But no, I get what you're saying. I can see that. You know, obviously, Goonies is a very, very influential movie, and I can see what you mean by that. So that's cool, Dead Captain James. You're a very nostalgic person. You got, you know, Sea of Thieves is scratching that Goonies itch for you. Grounded scratching that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids itch for you. I'm glad that Xbox's first party output is really catering to your nostalgic needs, because damn, it sure would be nice if Sega would put out some Sonic games for me. Anyway, Chicago Gamer 420 says, Jesse, you must try the Elder Scrolls Online with the new Series X update. The game looks incredible now. It performs at 60 FPS in performance mode. I never really liked the game until now, but now I can't put it down. Let's make a guild of X-boners. Chicago Gamer 420. Simply put, no. No, I won't play Elder Scrolls Online. I don't want to leave you hanging or anything, so let me just be as honest with you as possible. I will never play Elder Scrolls Online. I don't care if I can go back in time to the year 2019 and Dr. Fakasha comes over to my house and says, Jesse, you got to listen to me. There's this big coronavirus. It's on the way. It's really bad shit. But you can stop it. All you got to do is get on over to your Xbox right there, download Elder Scrolls Online, and start a guild. If you do this, the coronavirus will never spread and the world will be spared of 2 years of endless turmoil. And I would say, no. And I'd slam the door in his face. Go back to playing fucking Disney Infinity. So, Chicago Gamer, politely, no. Mojo writes in and says, thanks for clearing things up last week, Mr. Jesse, the dapper Disney dude, DeRosa. I appreciate it. Personally, I could care less if someone wants to troll or call names. I just would hate for it to happen to a younger or more sensitive commenter, like myself. Anyway, that's not you, that's me saying like myself. Anyways, there is something that occurred to me recently in that you're from Georgia and now you live in Florida, yet you have absolutely zero accent. What gives? Are you a spy? Maybe from PlayStation. The world wants to know. Well, Mojo, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So my family's actually from the Northeast. My parents are from Connecticut. Most of my siblings are from a mix of like Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York. So most of my family's from the Northeast United States. I was technically born in Massachusetts, but when people ask where I'm from, I always just say Georgia because I've lived in Georgia since I was like 5 years old. So, you know, I'm from Georgia. I'm not really from Massachusetts. I don't remember what it was like the few years I lived in Massachusetts and New York. So there's that. I grew up in a home where everyone was very much not from the South, so I never picked up on that kind of accent. Now you might say, well, if your family's all from the Northeast, why don't you sound like one of those fucking stupid Bostonians? Well, I don't sound like one of those because God said, I gave you enough body hair, I'll go sparingly on the accent. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But yeah, no one in my family has an accent. We all have very, I don't know, like the way I talk or my family talks, I feel like this is the way most Americans talk. It's the very standard flatline American accent. You know, there's like the northern accent, there's the southern accent, there's the surfs up dude California accent. But I have you be the judge. You tell me how I sound to you, I guess. But I feel like I have the very standard American accent. No frills. No special additions or whatever to the way I speak. It's just very standard, regular Joe Schmo English. So sorry to disappoint you if I don't sound like a Canadian or redneck or whatever you were expecting. But also, I do got... in defense, you know, Mojo, I don't know where you're from. You know, you could be from fucking like Mozambique for all I fucking know, you know? But I assume because you asked the question that you're not from the Southeast and you're not very familiar with states like Georgia and Florida. Contrary to the stereotypes and popular belief, unless you live in like the middle of nowhere, like in the sticks, almost no one really has an accent here. Like, you know, growing up in Georgia, like in Atlanta and around Atlanta, most people just talk normal. You'll meet people with Southern accents, absolutely. I've met plenty of people in my life being from Georgia who I'd be like, yeah, you're a fucking redneck. Like, don't get me wrong, but like most people in Georgia, especially if you're like in the city or in a surrounding area of the city, it's like, most people just sound, you know. Also, it's like, especially here in Florida, like in Central Florida where I live, no one here's from the South. Like Central Florida's like demographic makeup is like a lot of people from the Northeast, like people just moving here by the millions from New York and New Jersey and those kinds of hellholes. So we have tons of that trash here. And then we've got, you know, people like me who come in from places like Atlanta or random places throughout the country. And then we have a really large Hispanic population, lots of Puerto Ricans and stuff like that. So again, not like your typical white podunk rednecks here. And then, you know, we have a pretty good population actually here in Orlando. I'm not huge population, but a notable population, especially in the area I live, of people from other countries. We have, like in my neighborhood, we have a lot of Europeans, a lot of people from the UK that move here. So I mean, especially like pre-COVID, when things were like kind of all normal and I was working at my job closer to like the tourist part of town, most of the people I worked with were, you know, like the joke in Florida is that like no one you know is actually from Florida. So like, oh my God, at my old office, like the people I worked with, my manager was from Montana, my assistant manager was from New Jersey, the lady I worked next to, I shared a desk near, she was from the UK, and her boss was from the UK, and then my other coworkers, we had one from Maryland, we had one from Miami, and one from Florida. So we did it at Floridian. But like the point being, like the makeup of Central Florida in particular is very, very diverse. Also, like, I mean, my current office, like the funny thing is like my current location I work at with my company, in my current office, more than half the staff is from the state of New York. No, not more than half. About half the state is from New York. Five of the 10 people I work with at my current job are from New York. So that's, you know, what do you want me to say about that? So the only surprising thing is I don't meet more people with crazy Northeastern accents. But also, Mojo, you say, P.S. Not being the biggest first-person shooter gamer other than basic Halo, Call of Duty, Doom, I just bought Metro Exodus, the Series X Enhanced Edition, with DLCs for $60. And let me tell you, the game's freaking awesome, story and gameplay wise. Plus, it's visually stunning, and I highly recommend, bro. Mojo, I'm glad to hear you're enjoying that. I'll be honest, I need to give Metro Exodus another try. I played the first two and really, really loved them. I played the re-release when it came to Xbox One, like back in 2014. Really love those two games. And then when Metro Exodus came to Game Pass for the first time, I played maybe about like 25% of it, and for whatever reason just really wasn't feeling it. And then I got to this annoying part where I got stuck trying to explore like this tundra, and it pissed me off, so I just deleted it and didn't go back. But I think it's one of those games where if I probably just downloaded it and tried it again at the right time, I'd get really into it. But it frustrates me a little bit that I was so into the first two and then I never really played through the third one. But really glad to see you're enjoying it. Maybe those Series X enhancements will bring me back. Who knows? Wes H. writes in and says, Mojo, it's all about you this week. Mojo, I would like to take some time to apologize to you, your family, and most importantly, Second Best Gaming. I understand it's 2021 and joking around online can get a guy canceled. It was all in good fun, and deep down, it was sheer jealousy of wanting to become Second Best Gaming's first ever executive names editor. I was at a line. In fact, not even in a line, a straight line that is, but more of a circle. I swear an oath never to utter the L word again. Sincerely, Wes H. Mojo replied and said, all good, bro. I like that, real, don't take it too seriously response. All good, bro. And Wes H gave you, a really lengthy paragraph here about, just really owning up to the whole situation, explaining himself. But listen, guys, it's nice to see you two make up. Now, that might be good enough for you two. Things might be good between the two of you, but I feel a little unsatisfied by this makeup, this agree to disagree. So I think the next step would be for you guys to take it out to the ring. So we're gonna need you guys to fight. So let me know if you guys want to Jake Paul pay-per-view this bullshit. But we're gonna have to have some kind of Mojo versus Wes H throwdown, and I don't know how to coordinate something like that, but we'll figure it out. I'm sure someone knows a thing or two, but guys, we're going to have to see you guys fight presumably to the death, so it's the only way to really solve this. Lethal Migraine jumps in and says, Mountain Dew tastes like they took an orange, rolled it in dirt, and added vomit. Now, Lethal Migraine, normally I wouldn't dignify that kind of comment by reading it, but my brother responded to you and said, I've never gotten a hint of orange from Mountain Dew before. It tastes completely artificial and completely amazing. And that's why I read the comment, is because that's the truth. See, the reason why I know why you're just a hater and not a real, Mountain Dew opposer, you just do it for the clout, is because any half-witted Mountain Dew consumer would know that what makes Mountain Dew so great is that it doesn't taste like a fruit. It's a citrus soda, but you can't put your finger on it. You don't drink Mountain Dew and go, oh, that's lemon lime. No, that's Sprite. Sprite does that shit. Sprite is so unimaginative that it puts itself in a little box and says, oh, I'm like lemon and lime, but I'm soda. It's like, okay, cool, Sprite, go fuck yourself. If I wanted lemon and lime, I'd go buy a fucking lemon and lime like Cleopatra from fucking 1937 or whenever the fuck she was from. Definitely not 1900s. And I go squeeze that shit in my mouth, maybe with some carbonated water, because I'm a goddamn plebeian and that's the kind of taste I'm after. But no, when you have a highly sophisticated palate and you consume something like Mountain Dew, you're looking for a flavor that Mother Nature can't provide, because lemon and lime simply won't cut it. You need something more advanced. So yes, PepsiCo builds it as a citrus soda, but notice how they never say specifically which citrus. It's because it's a citrus all unto itself. It's not lemon, it's not lime, it's not yuzu, it's not orange. It is Mountain Dew. So, Lethal Migraine, you're discrediting yourself. In fact, this even lends credence to what I was trying to explain the other week when I was talking about those new Baja Flash and Baja Punch flavors, because my whole point was, I feel like with some of these new Mountain Dew flavors, they're losing the plot a little bit with what makes Mountain Dew special, which is that the flavors always taste wholly unique. They taste like nothing you've ever had before, but also distinctively Mountain Dew at the same time. Whereas a lot of these new flavors taste like different fruit sodas. Like the new Mountain Dew Flash is a pineapple coconut, like pina colada Mountain Dew. And I love pina colada flavor. Like, you tell me pina colada soda, I'll be like, hey, that sounds really good. I want to try that. And I like this soda. I think this is a good flavor of soda. I've tried Mountain Dew, the Baja Flash. I like the pineapple coconut. But my problem is Mountain Dew wouldn't normally try to recreate some fruit combination in soda. It would just create its own completely unique flavor that you cannot compare to anything you've ever had before, and they would give it a name and describe it as best they could, because it's Mountain Dew and there's nothing else like it. You look at Voltage, it doesn't taste like blueberry or something just because it's blue. It tastes like Mountain Dew Voltage. You look at Code Red, they try and claim it's like Mountain Dew with a rush of cherry. No, man. It tastes like Mountain Dew Code Red because nothing else tastes like that. And that's my gripe with the new Mountain Dew flavors, is it's like, oh no, that really does taste like a melon soda or a pineapple coconut soda or a fruit punch soda or raspberry lemonade soda. It's like, well, that's not Mountain Dew, because Mountain Dew isn't about tasting like a fruit. It's about tasting like a Mountain Dew. And so the fact that you have the audacity to try and sit here and liken Mountain Dew to like a shitty orange flavor tells me that you don't know what Mountain Dew's all about. So Lethal Migraine, shame onto you and shame onto your whole family. I now curse thee, and your entire bloodline will now grow unibrows for generations to come. And the only way to cure this hex that I've placed on your bloodline will be, of course, for you to go on some fairy-like quest, perhaps in Elder Scrolls Online. I wouldn't know. I don't play that game. But Lethal Migraine, you continue on. You say, where are all the games complaint is invalid. Xbox released 13 exclusives last year, a ton more this year. You need to stop your silly little narrative and actually pay attention. Whining that Xbox is trying to sell consoles is odd. It's their business after all. Okay, Lethal Migraine. You're first about them trying to sell consoles. You're taking me out of context. I said last year hyping a bunch of games that they know full well aren't coming out for like 5 years to sell a new console is misleading. Obviously, it's their job to sell consoles, but that's not how you do it, you know? The fucking cigarette company's job is to sell cigarettes, but they're not supposed to go around being like, oh, little kids, if you smoke this cigarette, you will grow facial hair 10 years early, and then little Sally from your classroom will fall in love with you. They don't go around to cancer patients and say, if you smoke these cigarettes, it will cure your lung cancer. No. I mean, of course, they were evil like that back in the day before government regulation, but the point being, just because you have a product to sell doesn't mean you should do it in a dishonest and ugly way. And hyping up a bunch of games you know full well aren't coming out for 5 years to sell a new console seems a little slimy and dishonest. That's what I was saying. So no shit, it's their job to sell consoles. I'm just saying, for a company that's all about, you know, transparency and pro-consumer and all that shit, you would think they'd be a little more honest about what they're showing and when you're getting it. That's all. That's what I was saying, Lethal Migraine. Anyway, let's wrap up with 2 comments from Sam Torres. He always writes long ones, but he always writes good ones. Sam Torres, take it away. Wrap us up this week. Please, God. Thank you. He says, gotta throw this in there too. No need to read the first blah, 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 blah. I'm going to skim through these a little bit because they are long. You say, my son and I have gotten back into Cars 2, the video game. He trounced me in it, but it's got good muscle memory from when he was 4, and I just bought it used at a Blockbuster for him. Disney pulling out of game development or not having their own label sounds studio is hell. Yeah, maybe we won't get turds like the platformer Wreck-It Ralph on Nintendo Wii, but we miss out on those really great games like Cars 2 or Toy Story 3, and those games bring the experience a step further at home. Disney does have the money and the talent to give us some of the AA level games based on great properties. Right now, they are all collecting checks and letting the chips fall. Great point you brought up, though. I blame Bob. You're, of course, talking about, or you're either talking about Bob Iger, the now former CEO, or Bob Chapek, the current CEO, but